For all those who appreciate the work that we're doing here on Standing for Truth, please hit that subscribe button because we are just getting started.
Hi guys, Donnie. This is going to be the fourth video of the Dinosaurs in History presentation, but at any rate, we are definitely going to get into this now, and so hold on to your seat, and we're going to find out where the word dinosaur come from and kind of lay the beginnings of where these creatures were, when were they first discovered, and then we're going to kind of go from there. And so, but at any rate, let's get started with this thing. All right, now you got the days of creation. Now we went over these days just briefly, talking about them being literal 6 days. God created the earth and the universe, and so dinosaurs were created. Well, I'm going to use that for water dinosaurs and land dinosaurs. I'm just going to say dinosaurs for both of them, just for simplicity. But the scripture here on those creation of those animals was Genesis 1:20-31, day 5 and day 6 of those animals. And so let's move forward here. If you see this chart here, this is the geologic time scale. If you get into any type of secular science, you're going to see this. You're going to see this. But just to give you a little overview of how dinosaurs are seen in the secular world, or what you'll hear about, the smaller dinosaurs came on the scene around the end of the Triassic period, and that, if you look on my notes there, it says 100 million years before the larger dinosaurs evolved. The early evolution of dinosaurs. So what they're saying is they started off small and then they grew big. And then you got the time of the dinosaurs is around the Jurassic and Cretaceous time period. And then they died off at the end of the Cretaceous, and then you have a 60 to 65 million year time period, and then humans start evolving around 1.8 to 5.6, and I've even heard 6 million years ago. The big debate on that, and so it's a big guess because there's no evidence of that, and so you'll see numbers floating from 1.8 to 5.6 to even 6 million years ago. And so but this is what is known as the geologic time scale. And so and you only will see that right before your eyes here or in books. That's the only place you find anything like this. Now, some people believe that the dinosaurs were, let's just say they went on the ark, or maybe they didn't go on the ark, because there's a big debate even among some creationists on when the ice age was. Was there an ice age? Yes, there actually was an ice age, and it covered about 30% of the land. And some people believe that the ice age is what killed out the dinosaurs. And so we're going to look at that. I'm not going to go real deep into this. I do go more in depth on the ice age on the flood and the Noah's Ark presentation. And so but I'm just going to give, just for time's sake, and because I want to leave that for the Noah's Ark, I'm just going to show you how dinosaurs could have easily survived the ice age, no problem at all. If you look to the left of the screen, you'll see a little arrow. Now, all the white that you're seeing, that's the ice age coverage that they've been able to research. And so that's all the land mass that doesn't have the white on it, no ice. And so you check out that arrow going across the screen there. That is the equator. That is the equator. There's more warmer climates at the equator. All right, so the ice age was here, and it was 30% of the land. Now, I'm not going to say when it was. We'll get to that when we get to the flood presentation. Now, if you look at the pictures at the bottom of the screen, you'll see an Apatosaurus, and then a Stegosaurus, and then I got others. Now the Apatosaurus-like animals are little white dots. So if you look on the map there, you'll see the little circles, the little white dots. That's where, or the little white circles, that's where Apatosaurus type animals have been seen. Big body, long neck, long tail, 4 legs. They've been seen in the areas that you see the white circles. Stegosaur type animals were seen where the red dots are at, the little red circles that you see. And then others, or other type of dinosaur-like animals, were seen where you see the light blue. And like I said, throughout this presentation, we're going to talk about these locations. And so if you look at the next slide here, look again, we're going back to the Ice Age coverage. Now you can see that where these dinosaur sightings, there's no ice. Most of them are near the equator. That's the center part of the globe there. And they're warmer type climates. Some of them are in like lush jungle climates. And so, and we're going to get into some of those areas there. We'll talk about that. And so I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm so excited about now being able to get into this. I'm wanting a rabbit trail, and so I'm not going to do it. We're going to save it for later. But you can see that. You can see it very clearly. I don't have any problem with the dinosaurs surviving the Ice Age. Now, what's really interesting is when I started doing these maps and started, putting the locations of certain sightings and stuff like that, it's really neat to see how they kind of cluster themselves on the maps. And so these are the Plesiosaur-like creatures. So if you look at the bottom left hand of the screen, you'll see that Plesiosaur type animal. And so this would be your water dinosaur. And so look up on the map and you'll see all those little white circles. And it's kind of neat because the most of the sightings have been in the cooler climates. And so I thought that was really neat. If you look at all of them, you got Australia down there in that area. There's one over there in South America at the very bottom. There's one towards the South America. Now, I don't care what type of sighting, if it was anything close to what a plesiosaur would look like, I added it into the map. And so, but it's really kind of neat. If I say about a good 90% is in or 95% of these sightings are in cooler climates on the globe. Now, and throughout history, there's been whaling ships. There's been all types of ships in the past that have reported seeing creatures in the waters. And so I really have no problem with that. Now, of course, there could be some sightings that people mistaken other animals, for a serpent or a dinosaur-like animal in the water. Very well could have been easily mistaken sightings, but there's a whole lot of them that sure match what a dinosaur type of animal would look like. But a lot of water reporting sightings have been made through history, and of course there's the Plesiosaur there. Everybody remembers Champ. If you've ever heard of Champ or the Loch Ness Monster, that's a Plesiosaur type of animal. And so this is the picture to the right is a very famous photograph that was made of Champ in Lake Champlain. And so very and it's been ridiculed and stuff, but I tell you what, that photograph has been pored over, and we're going to talk about that photograph later. And but it's been pored over, and so far they've not been able to find anything wrong with this photograph, except that it looks like a dinosaur. That's about the only thing that anybody's found wrong with it. But a very famous photograph, and pretty much that's what people see. They see the head come out of the water, and then you got the back of the animal is usually seen poking out. Now, if we look in Scripture, we can kind of back up the claim that you're probably going to see more water dinosaurs than land dinosaurs. Genesis 7:21 through 22, it says, "And of all flesh died that moved upon the earth." Now, we're talking about the flood. We're going through the flood historical account here. It says, "And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both fowl and of cattle and of beast and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostril was the breath of life." And here, this is very key here. "Of all that was in the dry land died." So God's judgment was on the dry land. That's where He was really. That's where His judgment was. It was on the whole entire planet, but everybody that died, everybody that was on the dry land died. Of course, when you're drowning them with water, of course your water animals are going to be able to survive more than the dry land animals. And so, but at any rate, do we find some water animals in the fossil record? Absolutely, because you've got earthquakes, you've got volcanic eruptions, huge underwater landslides. There's been all types of stuff that's been found, and again, we'll talk about those things when we talk about Noah's Ark. And so, again, there's no problem with seeing dinosaur-like animals in the water. It correlates very nicely with what the Bible states when God destroyed the earth. It says right here, "Of all that was in the dry land died." Nothing that lived on the land lived unless it was in that ark. Now, the first recorded discovery of dinosaur bones / fossils. If you look on the left side of your screen, that is a Megalosaurus. They only found fragmented fossils. It was found by William Buckland in England. It was found in 1819, and it was named in 1824. Now, if you look at the bottom, the very bottom, you got William Buckland on the left there, and then you got what they first thought the Megalosaur looked like. Completely different animal. Now you got to think, they've never seen dinosaurs before. They didn't even know what it was, and so they just looked at all these weird looking bones, and they just put it together the best way that they thought it would go. And so it's really kind of wild that at first they thought it was a four-legged animal that walked on all fours, and then later on, I guess through research and discovery of new bones and fossils and stuff like that, they end up finding out that it was very much similar to a T-Rex. And so on the right hand side, you see in 1822 that Dr. Gideon Mantell and his wife, they found an iguanodon tooth. And so that word means iguana tooth. And so it looked a lot like an iguana's tooth. So iguanodon, it means iguana tooth. Now, here's some other pictures of what they thought some of the dinosaurs looked like whenever they were first discovering their bones. I think this is kind of funny. If you look at that animal in the foreground there walking on the two legs, that's what they thought a stegosaur looked like. A stegosaur depiction in 1884. So they really, I mean, it was so many of the dinosaurs that they were putting together was incorrectly put together. But check it out. A stegosaur depiction in 1884, and this is what it actually looks like. And so really different. Let's go back to that other one. There's the other one, what they thought it looked like, and that's what it actually looks like. And so and that one say Stegosaur Peabody Museum of Natural History, 1910. Now, the word dinosaur means terrible lizard. That's what the word dinosaur means. The word dinosaur was invented by a creationist, Sir Richard Owen, in 1840-1841. That's the two dates that I've been able to gather. Somewhere around 1840-1841 is when that word was coined, dinosaur. So whenever people says, well, why had the word dinosaur in the Bible? Well, it wasn't coined. It wasn't even invented. Before that, they were known as dragons. Now, the word dragon is in the Bible. All right. Hey, Donnie, how you spell dinosaur? Now, this dictionary is a Webster's dictionary. It's from 1873. It's 145 years old from the date of this recording here, which is 2018. That dictionary is 145 years old. And whenever I first started putting the museum together and started doing presentations and searching and looking for materials that I could take with me on presentations, I was on a big scavenger hunt. It was really kind of interesting. I got a chance to meet a lot of interesting folks, and got a chance to network with some interesting people and companies and stuff like that. But I went on a big search for a dictionary that did not have the word dinosaur in it. And so the first place I went on was eBay. And I got up with a lot of antiques bookstores, and I just started telling them, hey, I'm looking for a dictionary that does not have the word dinosaur in it. And I went through a bunch of stores, and a lot of people said, yeah, that's kind of unusual. Never had somebody ask that. And but I did have somebody email me back and said, hey, Donnie, I got your dictionary, and this right here was it. Now, this dictionary is literally falling apart. You have to hold it with two hands, or the back will just come right off of it. That little cover there will come right off of it. But it's an old book, and it looks old. And but we're going to look at a scan here. Now, if you check out my video, mobile museum walkthrough, or walkthrough museum, or museum walkthrough, dinosaurs and man, that video, I do show this dictionary, not up close. You're getting an up close shot of it here, and so, but check it out. I go through my dinosaur display there. This is that page. It's on page 375 of Webster's Dictionary, 1873. You see right there, there is no dinosaur. It's not in there. This is in Isaiah 43:20. It says, the beast of the field shall honor me, the dragons and the owls, because I give waters in the wilderness and rivers in the desert, to give drink to my people, my chosen. Now, we talked about last time about the word dinosaur not being in the Bible, and it wasn't even in that 1873 dictionary of Webster's dictionary, and so some people might say, why ain't the word dinosaur in the Bible? Well, it wasn't even created. Now, in 1840, a man by the name of Thomas Hawkins wrote a book entitled The Book of the Great Sea Dragons. On the opening page, it says Ichthyosauri and Plesiosauri. Now, we're going to talk about the Ichthyosauri. The Plesiosauri is the Plesiosaurs. That's, you got Nessie in Scotland, and then you got the Lake Champlain, or Champ. That's your water dinosaur that's really famous. People say sometimes they'll give witness of seeing long neck, small head, 4 flippers, and a tail. This is that display here that Sir Richard Owen built, and Thomas Hawkins sold his fossils to the British Museum. Now it's called the Natural History Museum. But if you'll look here at the very bottom, with the bottom right-hand corner, it says, you see that animal there. It looks a lot like a dolphin in a way, but it's that's a ichthyosaur. That's what that looks like. And so this display here has some flippers. You're seeing some flippers of that animal. This is a picture of what that looks like. They average from 6 to 13 feet long, though 50 and 70 foot fossils have been found. I've got a picture of a fossil of the ichthyosaur giving birth, and it was killed, I believe, during the flood, but it was actually during the birth, and it's got the whole entire fossil. It's got the fossil of the baby actually coming out of the ichthyosaur. Getting a little closer on this this display here, if you look here on the right hand side, he actually says, or Hawkins actually says, sea dragon. You got Hawk, that's Hawkins' name there, part of his name, and then you got sea drag. Sea drag is sea dragon. That's what they were called. So they these animals, I believe, and along with others, believe that they were known as dragons. That's what they were called, as dragons. Now, if you look on further, just below the ichthyosauri and plesiosauri, it says Gidelim Tananim of Moses. Now, it's really interesting that you see that of Moses there, so it's like he's connecting it to the Bible. Now, that Tananim is it's a Hebrew word, and we're going to look at that. This is from my concordance and my Seedmaster that I study with on the computer. That's an old Bible program. I love Seedmaster. I wish that my new computer, it has Windows 10 on it. It doesn't really recognize that. I went online because that Seedmaster was given to me back in the 90s, and but it's actually, I think it was some freeware that you could get online. They don't offer it anymore. It's an old Bible program. I want to say early 90s is when that thing was created, but it is an absolutely just awesome Bible program to study with. And but it's got a and I have other computers, and so I just do my Bible studies on the Windows 7. Windows 7 appears to be able to recognize it, and but I really love studying with the Seedmaster. And then I got the the Windows Media file that I'll listen to Chuck Smith and on MP3. And so, but this is from Thayer's, from the Concordance. And if you look down here, that Tananim, you see it right there, 08577, and it's got Tananim, or Tanin. It's got, it gives you the definition. You got dragon, serpent, whale, sea monster, and then it's got one dragon, serpent, sea monster, and right there on 1A it says dragon or dinosaur. I thought that was very unique that they put that in there. Now, if you take that number right there, 08565, you can go a little bit deeper into this word and what it means. And that TAN, you can define that, and they got it as dragon, maybe the extinct dinosaur or Plesiosaurus. And so, interesting. I thought that was really interesting that they would put that in there. Now, this fella here is Conrad, I'm going to guess on his name. It's Gesner. It's 1516 to 1565 is when he was on this planet. And he was a Swiss naturalist, a bibliographer, a botanist, a physician, and classic linguist. And that word linguist means a person skilled in languages. And botanist is somebody that studies plants. That's what those words mean. He published a four-volume encyclopedia, 4,500 pages, from 1551 to 1558, entitled Historia Animalium, considered to be the first modern zoological work. He was a science writer. Anna Pavard comments, he was a one-man search engine, a 16th century Google with the added bonus of critical evaluation. So this fella here definitely is smart. And folks, this is before television. This is before television and smartphones. I really believe that, and so does a lot of researchers that are researching into this area of all electronics, is believing that our intellect, we're losing our intellect. It seems like I'm wanting to say about 20 or 30% of our intellect we're losing because of these electronic gadgets. The electronic gadgets are now thinking for us. And so if you want to learn more about this, what you can do is, I know that Archibald Hart did a presentation. I actually saw it on YouTube. If you was to put Dr. Archibald Hart, he's got one in there. I recently saw that he did a presentation. I'm wanting to say it's about 30 minutes long, but you can also look at my my video entitled video game ratings and the digital invasion. Check that out. At the very end of that video, I've got 2 messages that they did a little panel discussion on Family Talk, and Dr. James Dobson and Dr. Archibald Hart looked in. Dr. Archibald Hart and his daughter wrote a book called Digital Invasion, where they looked at the research that has been done on electronic gadgets. And I'm telling you, it's really scary. It's really scary what it's doing. I haven't even had a smartphone a year yet. At the time of this video, it hasn't been a year yet, and I can see where it can be very addicting, because you got the whole world in your hand, and a lot of people are on social media, and they're able to constantly chat and stay in check with people. I can see the appeal to that, but it's taking the. I'm still an old-fashioned guy. I like to pull books off the shelf and turn pages. And but I really noticed my son when he's in college at the moment, and I noticed him writing down notes. And I asked him what he was doing, and he said that he retains the information better when he gets a pencil and paper out and writes down his notes. And that is a research thing. They actually have noticed that people that write down the information rather than typing it into a computer tend to retain the knowledge better. So I know I'm getting on a little soapbox here, but this is really a concern of mine, and the researchers are just wondering exactly what type of effects it's going to have on our generation, the next generation. And so, because people aren't writing anymore, they're losing the ability to write. They're losing their ability to contemplate and to meditate. And I'm not talking about meditating like Eastern type religion meditation. I'm talking about just sitting and thinking. People don't contemplate. They're losing the availability of creating. Just thinking, being bored sometimes could be a good thing. And so, but people are losing the ability to just sit and contemplate. And so, but this guy here, this shows you what people were like before we had some of the electronics that we had today. A lot of people read. They read books. Their minds were exercised, and they were very smart people. Even though they may have not had the technological advances that we have today, people, they thought a lot. They wrote down and they studied. And but this guy right here is very impressive. But let's see what he has to say. He mentions dragons as very rare but still living creatures. And so I would love to have one of this guy's books. And so, but he says that dragons were very rare but still living creatures. Now, the ancient Chinese called fossils dragon bones, believing dragon bones to possess curative powers. Chinese druggists have for centuries powdered them for use in remedies and potions for early Western paleontologists. Chinese drug shops therefore provided an unexpected hunting ground. And that was from The Hidden History of the Human Race by Michael Cremo. And very good book. Very good book. He's got a lot of things in his book. I've got his book. And he shows a lot of what you call art. It's out of place artifacts. And really neat stuff how they found some artifacts in layers of rock strata that are supposed to be millions of years old, but these were man-made items. And so really, really, really interesting. And Michael Cremo is not a creationist, but I do advise the book. It's a very good book to get. Here we go. Now, of course, in Isaiah also, you can see that the Lord is showing that the dragons were contemporary with other animals because they were mentioned with other animals. Now, when we think of dragon, we think of this animal right here. We think of the movies. We think of, the flying, the fire-breathing dragon, and they're very well could have been animals like that. I'm not going to go into it right this minute, but in the book of Job, it mentions a Leviathan, and it's very well possible that animal had the ability to blow a fire either out of its nostrils or its mouth, just by the description and how it describes it. Now, this was a fossil that was found. It was discovered in 2004 in the Hell Creek Formation in South Dakota. They called it Dracorex hogwartsia. I don't know if they got this from Harry Potter or not. It sounds like it. But look at this fossil here. Check it out. You see the horns on the top of it. And that is, let's go back to that other picture there. Take a look at that animal. This is just a drawing here. And take a look at that. Absolutely just incredible to look at. I mean, that's spooky. But that's an actual fossil that they found. And that fossil there was donated to the Children's Museum in Indianapolis. And this is what it says. It's a new type of dinosaur that looks like a dragon. Now, we're not talking about a Christian organization here, or creationist, or anything like that. It says it's a new type of dinosaur that looks like a dragon. So they're using the dinosaur and the dragon as one. When we saw this creature's head, it's what it says here. When we saw this creature's head, we weren't sure what kind of dinosaur it was. Its spiky horns, bumps, and long muzzle looks more like a dragon. Isaiah 43:20. Here we go. The beast of the field shall honor me, the dragons and the owls. So, take a look at that picture there to the left. That's the drawing of what people think of a dragon. Look at the one to the right. Now, what they did is they put some flesh on it and filled it in, but still you got the bone structures there. Very similar, very similar. Is it possible that we think of dragons were actually the dinosaurs were definitely called dragons, but is it where we get the dragon idea from is from the dinosaurs that were seen in the past? Now, let's look at that Dracorex. It's believed that the Dracorex is a young juvenile of that dinosaur on the bottom there called a Pachycephalosaurus. Now, what they said is, when they were researching this, is that the skull on the Dracorex is a spongy skull, and that it didn't fully develop. And then the one in the middle there, it's still a spongy skull, but you notice that lump. You notice that lump on the top of its head. And what's happening is that the dinosaur is developing. What's happening is it's developing. And then the bottom one is an adult one. The bump has gotten a little bit bigger, and the skull is more solid. And so I'm going to try to pronounce that one in the middle as Stygimoloch. And it's an older juvenile, but it has a smaller lump. And you notice that the horns on behind it there, they're starting to lay down, and then the adult there, it doesn't have any horns, but the bump is a little bit taller, And so it still has the, it appears that it does have the little points and the little horns on its nose there, but the Dracorex is very well, could be nothing more than just a young, a younger version of the Pachycephalosaurus. I'm doing pretty good on that. So you got the young here to the left, and the adult looks like that. Okay? It was 15 feet long, and that word means thick-headed lizard. Thick-headed lizard, no doubt about it. I can see it. I can see it. If you was to take that lump, make it flat, and bring up those horns just a little bit, you got the Dracorex. Same animal. Same animal. When that hump raised up, it made the other ones kind of lay back. Very easily seen. That lump there was about 9 inches thick. That's pretty thick. They probably rammed each other's heads if they were doing anything like rams, what you see rams do on some of your Nova channels or Discovery channels, how the rams ram each other. It's probably a lot like that. It's probably used to ram other animals as like a defense mechanism. Now here we go. Here's another one that was researched on its head, which is very interesting. You got a Triceratops. They believe that it's the young version of the Torosaurus, which is an adult. The skull of the Triceratops was spongy, but the skull on a Torosaurus was not spongy. And the frill, that's that thing on the back of it there, go behind the horns there, you got that kind of that large plate looking thing. That's a frill. The frill was enlarged further and had developed holes in it. Only found as a large specimen. That's the only time they saw those horns, was at a large specimen, and the skull was not spongy. And so you definitely have got the same kind of dinosaur. And so very interesting, very interesting. They are learning more and more about dinosaurs as the years go on. And we haven't even started talking about the fresh tissue. And so they've been finding a lot of fresh tissue in these dinosaur bones. Here was another one, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now the one on top is a Nanotyrannus. And they believe that the Nanotyrannus is no more than a young version of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Definitely, I can see it. I can see that. Now, of course, the skin and the colors and all that, that's all just theory. We don't know. They have found dinosaurs that have been what they call mummified, and we're not talking about mummified like you would see in an Egyptian tomb. We're talking about the entire animal is there. It's just turned to stone. They see the skin, and they've been able to see the scales. All that has been turned to stone. The entire animal is there, and they've been able to see patterns in the skin. There's different scale patterns, and they believe those different scale patterns are colors. Or could be colors in the dinosaur. And so really amazing animals that they've been able to see. And we'll see some of those later on in the presentation. We're going to look at our dinosaurs mentioned in the Bible. And we're going to look at Behemoth. That's the one we're going to look at today. And we're going to look at some mighty big animals that were found in the area of dinosaurs. And so there were some huge ones being found in the past. And so let's go ahead and let's jump right on into this thing. It says in the book of Job, Job chapter 40 verse 15, Job chapter 40 verse 15, Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee, he eateth grass as an ox. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole thing on Job and the storyline behind him, but in a nutshell, we'll go briefly over it. Satan and God were kind of dickering over Job a little bit, and Satan was wanting to work over Job a little bit, and God had allowed him to do certain things to Job and he withheld Job's life from him. He allowed Satan pretty much to wipe him clean. And for the most part, Job's faith stayed together and true, but he questioned pretty much what was going on, and his friends had come to Job and was thinking that Job must have did something wrong for all these things to befall him like it did. And but in the end, God steps in, and he starts reminding Job who he is and what he did. And one of the things that God did is he brought an animal to Job, and a massive animal to Job. And God, of course, rebukes Job's friends and tells them, who's this that give us knowledge who's this that give us counsel without knowledge? And he rebukes them that these guys, they don't know what they're talking about. And so he starts bringing things to Job while he's questioning them. Were you here when I did this? Were you here when I did that? And he's talking about creation. And so right here he brings this animal to him, and he says that he made him with thee. Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee. Talking about how the land animals, including the dinosaurs, was made with man. And so right here the Lord says, I made him with him. So this is a good verse to correlate day 6. And as before, you'll hear me talk about this many, many times, that if you question the book of Genesis, you question so many verses and so many books of the Bible. I mean, it does have a powerful domino effect. And so right here is one of those instances where if you didn't believe day 6 in the book of Genesis, well, you got a real problem here, because God even said, which I made with thee. And when did he make them? On day 6. The land animals were made on day 6. Man was created on day 6. Now, this Bible here, you got to realize, if you look over to the right, that circle there, that red circle, those are footnotes. A lot of your Bibles, or some of your Bibles, I don't want to say a lot of them, but some of your study Bibles will have what's called footnotes. And the footnotes are not inspired. Those are put there by man. And I've seen some footnotes about the days of creation that they question the days of creation. They question whether it was a long period of time. And I've actually had some Bibles, and I can't remember exactly which ones they are, but if you're ever in a Bible store or a Christian bookstore, look at the Bibles and look at some of the Bibles and look at their footnotes and see what they say about the days of creation. You'll smoke out a lot of that just by checking it out before you even buy it. But it'll say, I've actually read on some at the very bottom of the footnotes, it'll say that it wasn't a literal day, but a span of time. And so I don't know where they get that when the Bible is so clear that it's an actual 24-hour day. But right here, if you'll look in these footnotes, it says that Behemoth, you'll see that scripture there that's highlighted and underlined. You see Behemoth, it says supposed to be either an elephant or a hippopotamus. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the description of this animal versus these other animals, and let's see if we can tie that in and see if that's true or not. Now, you got an elephant, you got a hippopotamus, and you got another animal that very well could be the behemoth, which is a brachiosaur. So we're going to check this out, and we're going to see which one of these animals matches that description. Now, in Job 40, verse 16, it says, Lo now, his strength is in his loins, and the force is in the navel of his belly. All right, so we're going to look at it, the bellies. And so elephants, they have a big belly. That matches that one. And a hippopotamus has a big belly. No problem there. And a brachiosaur has a big belly. No problem there. So they match there. So far, they all have the big belly. Job 40:17. He moveth his tail like a cedar tree. Or a cedar. Basically what it is, a cedar tree. The sinews of his stones are wrapped together. Now, here we go. Now we're going to start having a little difference here in these animals. We're going to have to see if these animals have a tail like a cedar tree. So we're talking about a big tree. Now, the elephant does not have a tail like a cedar tree. So here we got some differences. A hippopotamus has a small tail. It does not have a tail like a cedar tree. So there's the elephant and the hippopotamus already are showing signs where they cannot be that animal. But the brachiosaur does have a tail like a cedar tree. So far the brachiosaur has a big belly and it has a tail like a cedar tree. His bones are as strong pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. So we're talking about massive bones, big bones. Now elephants and hippopotamuses do have big bones, no doubt about it. But the brachiosaur is even bigger than that. If you notice here, this bone here is a brachiosaur toe bone. And so if you look at that guy's hand right there, this is a joint. This is just one joint of one toe. And this guy right here, this is a picture out of National Geographic, January 1993, page 35. If you notice here, okay, that's a big leg, no problem there. You can see the massiveness of those bones. I mean, that is absolutely huge. Those bones are just about as big around as that guy is. But then you look at it like this, and then you can start to get the idea of how big a brachiosaur was. Very huge, monstrous animal. And that's just one leg. Now, we're going to look at some other animals here. But take a look at this. You see the man down there on the bottom, the far right. You got a 6 foot man. Now that 6 foot man's taller than me. I'm 5'7", and so I'm shorter than that guy. But then you got the giraffe, which is about 17 feet. So that's tall. I mean, if anybody that's ever been up to a giraffe, they know how tall giraffes are. But take a look at that brachiosaur, about 45 feet tall. That is huge. But then you got this other dinosaur, a Sauroposeidon, 60 feet tall. Take a look at that compared to that man. That's pretty huge. Let's look at some big dinosaurs, some major big dinosaurs. That was even bigger than this. An Ultrasaurus was named Ultra from a few large bones, upper forearm, some backbones, vertebrae, in the latter 1970s in South Korea. Believed to be a type of brachiosaur, which means armed lizard, because the few bones that have been found resemble the bones of a brachiosaur. Scientists estimated Ultrasaurus to be about 100 feet long and weighed as much as 100 to 150 tons, needing 4 to 5 tons of plant food every day. So they estimated that animal, being that big, would need about 4 to 5 tons of plant food every day just to survive. Now, a Supersaurus was named in 1985 the super lizard because of its estimated massive size. Estimated range from 52 to 54 feet tall and 108 to 141 feet long. The first bones were found in 1972 in Dry Mesa, Colorado. It is built like a Diplodocus, and we're going to look at that in just a minute. With its body weight at the hips, estimated weight is 55 tons. Now this is what a Diplodocus looks like. You can see that. Only a few bones have been found. 2 shoulder bones, shoulder blade 8 feet long, neck vertebrae 4.5 feet long, rib bones with one 10 feet long, and a pelvic hip bone 6 feet wide. That's pretty good size. So this is a Supersaurus neck vertebrate, 4.5 feet. That's pretty tall. That is a big bone. And a pelvic bone, 6 feet wide. That is huge. That is monstrous. So what they did is they look at these bones and they average the size of the animal by looking at these bones. Now let's look at a Titanosaurus. Titanosaurus. Now this was a big boy. Named for the mythological titans of ancient Greece. A local farm worker first stumbled on the remains in the desert near La Flecha, about 135 miles west of Trelew, Patagonia. And we'll look at the map here. There is Argentina. If you look right there in the middle of the screen, you got South America, and go towards the bottom and you'll see that square, that red square. That's Argentina. And this is a close-up view of that. If you look right there, about going towards the top, about a quarter of the ways down, I believe that right there. I've looked at a lot of maps to try to zero in that area by looking at the description of what it said. As far as the area, it's about in that general area right there is where they found these bones at. 7 individuals, partial skeletons, 150 bones total, were unearthed in remarkable condition. Now, this is an area that they were excavating. You can see these gigantic bones there. Take a look at that. Really amazing. Based upon the huge thigh bones, it was estimated to be about 130 feet long, 65 feet tall, and weighed as much as 14 African elephants. And so these guys here are measuring these bones. Here's a guy laying next to one. Could there be any bigger? So look, I want you to look at this picture here. You got the picture of the man. Now he's sideways there. Go to the far left and you'll see the man, 6 foot. And then you got Titanosaur. Now we talked about Titanosaur. And then you got this animal here. I am not even going to try to pronounce that name. But remember, if for those of you that looked at my baraminology video, you always got the genus first and then the species after that. And so I called it a big whopposaur. So check that out. And so, but we're talking about, what, 190 feet long? An absolute just massive animal. But down there at the bottom it says, based on surviving field notes that were from 1878, only a few fossils were found and studied. The fossils have since been lost. Some think the enormous size given are exaggerated due to faulty descriptions in the original field notes. Now, in the book of Job, it says in chapter 40, verse 19, that he, Behemoth, is the chief of the ways of God. He that made him, here he goes again, God's talking about that. He that made him can make his sword to approach him. So, these animals weren't evolved. God didn't evolve these animals. They were made with man on day 6. He done stated that because he said that he made him with thee, which was with man. But that word chief is Hebrew. It's reshith. It means some, the best, the choicest. And so there's only one type of animal that I could think of that would match the some, the best, the choicest, the absolute. If he's because everything God was saying to Job, he was impressing Job with what he did. And so he's going to bring the biggest land animal to Job, which would be no more than these animals I just showed you. It would be one of those that he actually brought to Job to see, for Job to see. Now, let's look at something. We're going to look at something here. We're going to look at something about these animals that is very unique. Now, this right here is an average size horse, 5 to 6 feet at the shoulders, about 2,200 pounds, 1 ton. And then you got that man right there, 6 feet. So that right there is your average size horse. Now this is an Apatosaurus. This is my favorite dinosaur. If you'll see the videos that where you can see me, you'll see a Apatosaurus type of animal. I got some other types of dinosaurs on my chest, but usually on the left side of me, you'll see an Apatosaurus. That's my favorite dinosaur. But this one right here, the Apatosaurus, was 82 feet long, about 34 feet tall, and it weighed about 30 to 42 tons, or 30 to 42 horses. Now, the Apatosaurus had a set of nostrils about the same size as a horse's nostrils. Now, that's interesting, because if you look, you can see the Apatosaurus and the horse. Now, that horse and the Apatosaurus had the same size of nostrils. Now, that was a problem because that animal's got to get some oxygen in that body. There was something much different about this planet before the flood. Now, this guy right here, Richard I guess it's Hengist, from Purdue University, a physiologist, he said there were some serious problems trying to get air into that animal. Now, Mary Schweitzer, she said something really interesting. And we're going to talk about Mary Schweitzer in the future, because she was the one that discovered the fresh tissue in the dinosaur thigh bone, the T-Rex thigh bone. We're going to get into some of that. There's some exciting things here to show. But this is what Mary Schweitzer had commented about the lungs and the air. As far as we know, the way the lung tissue functioned was designed for an atmosphere that's very different than today's. Now, that is absolutely just incredible. I'm not going to get into a lot of the atmosphere. We're going to talk about that when I get into the flood. But the earth was much different than it is today. Before the flood, things got gigantic. People lived much longer than they do today. And the atmosphere was a whole lot better quality than it is today. They had more oxygen in the atmosphere than we have today. And so, and that made the organisms were much healthier, and they lived a whole lot longer. And so, but like again, we're going to get into that when we get into the flood. Now, we're going to stop right there. I think this is a good stopping point, and I want you guys to continually check out these videos and use them as you will. If you have any questions on anything, please. All right, guys. Y'all have a good day. God bless. Bye-bye.